Welcome to my channel. Here's today's eerie story. The rain had been relentless for hours, turning the winding road through Chile's vast wilderness into a slick, treacherous path. The highway, known as Route 78, stretched endlessly, disappearing into a thick, ghostly mist that clung to the asphalt like a shroud. Eduardo, an experienced trucker, had been driving for nearly 10 hours. His eyelids were heavy, his muscles aching, but he pushed on. His cargo needed to reach Puerto Montt by morning. The towering trees that flanked the road seemed to lean inward, their gnarled branches clawing at the storm-ridden sky. Lightning split the heavens, illuminating the forest for just a second. And in that brief flash, Eduardo saw them, dark shapes shifting between the trees. He gripped the wheel tighter. Just shadows, just the storm, or so he told himself. After what felt like an eternity, the glow of a lonely gas station appeared through the rain, its flickering neon sign the only light in an ocean of darkness. Eduardo sighed in relief and pulled in, the truck's engine rumbling as he parked beneath the canopy. The place was eerily quiet. No music, no distant highway sounds. Just the occasional chirping of crickets and the soft rustling of trees in the distance. The driver, Eduardo, stretched as he stepped out, inhaling the crisp night air. Inside, the cashier, an older man with tired eyes, barely looked up as Eduardo grabbed a quick meal and paid for his fuel. As he turned to leave, the manager suddenly called out. "Hey, you're heading down Route 78, right?" Eduardo nodded, wiping his hands on his jeans. "There's a young woman who needs a ride to El Bosque Viejo. Been waiting all evening. No buses, no rides. Can you help her out?" The trucker hesitated. He was tired, and taking a passenger meant a delay. But as he glanced toward the window, he saw her. Her hands were wrapped around a cup of coffee, but she wasn't drinking. Her dark eyes stared out into the storm, as if she were waiting for something or someone. When their eyes met, she smiled. "If it's not too much trouble," she said, her voice smooth, soft, like the rain against the glass. Eduardo sighed. He wasn't one to refuse someone in need. "Sure, hop in." She climbed into the truck silently. As they hit the road, the air inside grew unbearably cold and a faint scent of damp earth filled Eduardo's nostrils, like the ground after a heavy storm, but older, deeper. She introduced herself as Isabel. Their conversation started easy, local news, the quiet life in small towns, the dangers of traveling at night. But as they drove, Eduardo found himself glancing at her in the dim glow of the dashboard lights. Her eyes were beautiful, distant, almost sad. Then, to break the silence, he brought up something that had always intrigued him. "I heard a crazy story about this area," he said with a smirk. "About La Lola." For the first time, Isabel's lips curled into a slow, knowing smile. "They say she was beautiful once," Isabel replied. "She loved a man more than life itself. But he did not love her the same. She found him with another. She begged, pleaded, but he laughed. He said he would never be hers. So she made sure no one else could have him. She killed him in a rage. And then, she died alone, cursed to wander forever." Eduardo scoffed. "Sounds like a bedtime story to keep kids from wandering off." "True," Isabel laughed. The rain had slowed to a light drizzle when Eduardo finally pulled over at her stop, a quiet stretch of road, completely isolated, with only a narrow, muddy path leading into the woods. They stepped out together, still talking and smiling. By now, Eduardo felt at ease. They'd gotten along well. Then, suddenly, Isabel's smile vanished. Her body tensed, her eyes locked onto something. Without a word, she grabbed Eduardo's arm, squeezing tightly. "What?" Eduardo frowned, following her gaze. "What is it?" She didn't answer. She just pointed. Beyond the truck's headlights, standing just beyond the road, a shadow moved. It wasn't walking. It was floating. Eduardo's stomach knotted. Then, Isabel's grip tightened. "Run!" Before he could react, she yanked his arm and sprinted down the muddy trail, dragging him behind her. Eduardo stumbled but followed, his heart hammering in his chest. Branches whipped past, bushes scraped against his arms, but Isabel never slowed down. Behind them, the forest was silent. Too silent. No wind, no rain, no footsteps except theirs. In the distance, through the trees, Eduardo saw it. A small wooden cabin. The only thing that mattered now was reaching it. Eduardo barely had time to catch his breath before Isabel threw open the door and pulled him inside. As soon as they stepped inside the cabin, Isabel collapsed into Eduardo's arms, trembling. She clung to him, her body shaking, her breath uneven and ragged. "I can't believe this," she gasped between quiet sobs. "Was that real?" Her voice cracked, her fingers digging into his back as if afraid to let go. Eduardo's mind was spinning just as much as hers. He had no answers, only the lingering terror of what they had seen. "I don't know," he murmured, his voice lower than he expected. "But it's over now. We're safe." He held her instinctively, protectively, trying to reassure her, but deep down he was just as shaken. For several moments, they remained like that, pressed against each other, their damp clothes clinging to their skin. Their bodies were warm despite the cold, her breath hot against his neck. Then, something shifted. Eduardo felt his heartbeat change, no longer driven by fear but by something else. The heat of her body against his, the way her breath slowed, the soft rise and fall of her chest, it all changed. Slowly, he lifted her chin, his fingers brushing against her wet skin. She didn't pull away. Their lips met. At first, it was hesitant, almost searching. But then, something deep inside them gave in. The kiss turned slow, then hungry, their hands gripping each other tighter. Eduardo's lips moved from her mouth to her jawline, then lower to her neck, where her pulse beat rapidly beneath her skin. She tilted her head back slightly, her breathing shallow, her fingers tightening around the fabric of his shirt. Then suddenly she stopped. Her hands pressed against his chest, and she pulled back slightly, her lips still parted. She held his gaze for a lingering moment before whispering, "I'll be back in a moment." And then, she turned and disappeared into a room toward the back of the cabin. Eduardo stood there for a moment, his breath still uneven. Then, he slowly began walking around the dimly lit room. The cabin was warm, quiet, untouched by the storm. A single flickering candle cast a soft glow, making the wooden walls feel cozy yet eerily empty. His eyes wandered across the walls, bare, lifeless, until they settled on a framed portrait. A woman's face. It was Isabel. But the edges of the photograph were yellowed with age, and beneath it, a small plaque read, "In loving memory of Isabel Reyes, 1972 to 1994. A chill crawled up his spine. His hands trembled. "Isabel?" he whispered. A cold hand touched his shoulder. A voice whispered in his ear, slithering like wind through the trees. "No, Lola." Eduardo turned. Isabel was gone. In her place stood something twisted, something inhuman. Her sunken eyes were black voids, her mouth stretched too wide, her fingers now jagged claws. The candle flickered out. Darkness swallowed him whole. By morning, Eduardo's truck was found abandoned on the roadside. The engine still warm. But Eduardo was gone. Only a trail of footprints led away from the truck. into the endless forest, where no living man had walked. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to like and subscribe. And remember, darkness is never far away. Until next time,